This is my fermentation crock. There are many like it, but this one is mine. Without my fermentation crock, it's difficult to produce fermented foods. Why would anyone want to produce fermented foods? In today's video, we're going to be talking about probiotics. The first thing to understand is that bacteria is everywhere. Now, some bacteria is harmful for us, but it's important to note that some bacteria is actually beneficial for us. We're going to talk about our gut microbiome and why that's so important to our health and wellness.
Our digestive system is where we break down and absorb our nutrients. This process cannot work without microbacteria. Our body is host to millions of microbes or bacteria. There are up to 1,000 different species within the human body, though in our gut microbiota there are roughly 30 or 40 different species. These microbiota help us in many ways, including breaking down nutrients before absorption, killing harmful bacteria, and synthesizing nutrients like vitamin B and K.
So if some bacteria is good for you and some is harmful, how do we know when we ferment foods which bacteria we're producing? The best way to do that is to create an anaerobic environment. That just means an environment without oxygen. The easiest way to make an environment without oxygen is to put it underwater.
One great thing about the good or non-pathogenic bacteria is that it thrives without oxygen. So to make good fermented foods, we'll produce an anaerobic or oxygen-free environment. Starting with a whole head of cabbage, gently remove the outer leaves, trying not to break them. Next, we're just going to chop up the cabbage, not too fine though. Place all of it in a large bowl or a stock pot like this. I'm also going to shred about 2 or 3 carrots. I'm adding about 2 or 3 tablespoons of kosher salt. I'm adding about a half a gallon of cool water. Using a pair of tongs, just mix everything together. One last addition is about a teaspoon of caraway. At this step, we introduce the ceramic crock. Use your tongs to gently transfer everything over. Make sure to clean as you go so you don't have a mess when you're all done. My fermentation crock came with this wooden dowel, which is really useful to punch everything down. And now we need to make our anaerobic or oxygen-free environment. You should have plenty of liquid left and just ladle over as much as it takes to cover up the cabbage. When your cabbage is all submerged in liquid, you've effectively made an anaerobic or oxygen-free environment. Remember we saved our outer cabbage leaves? If you press those over your shredded cabbage, it'll help ensure that none of it floats above the water level. Now during the fermentation process, you'll maintain an anaerobic or oxygen-free environment. At this point, you'll notice that the leaves aren't quite covered in the water like we'd hoped. That's why you use these stone weights to help compress everything down so that it stays tidy throughout the fermentation process. With my stone weights holding the cabbage down, you can see that the water level has actually risen up. And lastly, you might have noticed this clever design, where there's a lip on the top of the crock. Fill that with water so that the lid holds a water seal, preventing any contamination. You'll want to store this someplace cool and dry and out of direct sunlight.
Okay, anywhere from 10 to 21 days and you're ready to take apart your sauerkraut. We're going to need some tongs, a jar funnel, some mason jars, and maybe a bowl to discard some of the extras. Let's get to work.
Just gently remove the lid, pull out the stone weights and the top cabbage leaves, and just discard those in the bowl. Let's take a look at our finished kraut. Using that funnel, just transition the kraut right into some jar or other storage container. When your jar is full of cabbage, ladle over some of that liquid to cover. So now the question is, why do we go through all this trouble? Why ferment foods? The simplest answer is that this kind of fermentation produces good bacteria that we refer to as probiotics. These probiotics have many benefits that we've already covered in this video. But the problem with store-bought sauerkraut is that it's been pasteurized and all the good bacteria has been killed off with the bad. With a few simple ingredients and the right method, you can produce some sauerkraut that's healthy for you and tastes way better than store-bought.
So from one head of cabbage, I was able to get one big and one small jar of finished sauerkraut, which will keep in the fridge from about 30 to 60 days. But in my house, they don't last that long. I'll eat them many different ways, sometimes straight out of the jar, but my favorite is over some fried eggs with some toast in the morning. I hope you try fermenting some foods, but please do it the safe way. And if you have any questions, type them in the comments box and I'll be happy to answer them for you. Thanks for watching Meals with Micah. Until next time.